What's up, everybody? Mom Vernon Kid here, coming to you again with the opinion spot. How's everybody doing out there? Got another fight for you guys. This one was, as you saw, was created by my good friend Galactusgirl. Now, I didn't do a preview because I wanted to surprise her and just see the expression on her face when she texts if she likes it or not. But she put an interesting fight together. It's another team battle, and hope you guys enjoyed the other 3 battles that I did. As always, show some love to the creators of some of the fights. But Galactusgirl puts the Lunatacs versus Sinister Six, the original Sinister Six. Yeah, so I said I gotta do this one. I gotta do this one for her. And also because Galactusgirl doesn't really give me a lot of fights, and the one she does give me are interesting. So she's thinking outside the box, like I always tell you guys to do. But for all those that don't know about the Lunatacs, or kinda you should, I mean, they're a Thundercat villain. They're villains of Thundercats, but I'm gonna go down the line of what they are. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, the Lunatacs are a group that tried to oppose Mum-Ra. They are from the moons of Plundar, and they tried to overthrow Mum-Ra. Mum-Ra defeated them, imprisoned them on the dark side of the moon, if I remember correctly, of Plundar. Unfortunately, he released them to battle the Thundercats. And when they came on the scene, this was like a new team that was like almost on par with the Thundercats. And the members, of course, I'm gonna go down with you. Okay, you got the leader, Queen Luna, and she's a dwarf kinda, but not really. There's a curse put on her to keep her in that her little body that you see right here. But when she's fully grown, she's like really strong. She's very powerful, very great sorceress and things like that. But when she's like that, she's kind of disabled. She rides this guy right here, M.V.K, and he's pretty much doesn't really talk too much, but he's loyal to her, and that's how she gets around. M.V.K usually, carries her around and things like that. But he's, like I said, he's very loyal to Luna. And then you have a Laurel, and he's kind of like the one that can trick you, mesmerize you mentally, telepathically, and things like that. He usually is like, "You don't stand a chance, give up," and things like that. That's how he is. And then you have Red Eye. Red Eye here, his eyes have all kinds of different kinds of infrared and things like that, and he's able to see Tiger when he's invisible. So when Tiger fought against him, it was kind of like Tiger couldn't go invisible. But that's Red Eye, and he also has that blade underneath him. Then there's Tugmug, who is pretty much the strongest out of the Lunatacs. Tugmug bounces around, and he has a cannon, as you can see. But the most impressive thing, and I will never forget this, of when that first, it was like yesterday when I remember this. Tugmug is the one who broke the Sword of Omens. Broke it. And right there, that was like, whoa. And then it's my favorite of the Lunatacs, Chilla. Chilla is like Killer Frost. She's like Killer Frost. She freezes you and things like that. So all the ice villains you can think of, that's who Chilla is like. She's like that. But she's so cool. She's my favorite out of the Lunatacs. But that's Chilla. But the Lunatacs sometimes don't work as a team pretty much. They're arrogant to the point where they think they know it better. They won't follow Luna's orders most of the time. So sometimes they're not a well-oiled team. But when they are, the Thundercats have a hard time with them. But sometimes the Thundercats were always easy to get them, like, to fight against each other, and that's how the Thundercats would defeat them. But they were always a very good team to go against the Thundercats, and hopefully we'll see them in the new Thundercats as well, the new Thundercats cartoon. So that's pretty much a little say on the Lunatacs. Okay, so we move on to the combatants. Okay, and the combatants are very, very recognizable. We should all know who they are, and let's get into them. The original Sinister Six was brought together by Doc Ock. They first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1. They were brought together because each one of them suffered defeat by the web slinger Spidey constantly, and they figured if they combined forces, well, Doc Ock figured that they would be able to defeat Spidey instead of, working separately. Usually, 6 heads are better than 1, right? So Doc Ock basically brought them together, and you had Electro, Mysterio, Vulture, Sandman, and Kraven the Hunter. He brought them together, and pretty much from the get-go, they really weren't getting along too much. Kraven was like, I'm a loner, I don't need your help. Sandman would say, Spidey's barely beaten me. He's always been able to trick me, things like that. But Doc Ock, as you see here, figured, we can beat the web slinger. So Doc Ock, being the brains of the operation, brings himself together to really get this team cohesive. Even though there have been other incantations of the Sinister Six, but I believe Lady G was talking about the original. So like I said, you got Doc Ock with his 6 arms and his genius. You got Electro, of course, a fan favorite by many, with his electrical powers and things like that. He pretty much gave Spidey a run for his money back in the days, and still to this day now. Spidey had to make an insulated suit just to fight him most of the time, or web up his hands just to punch him. So it was always cool to see Electro on the team, and can't say nothing but bad about Electro. Max Dillon, Quentin Beck, Mysterio, old fishbowl head, was the master of illusions, and he gave Spidey a little hard time sometime with his illusion, his tricks, and special effects powers. But Spidey most of the time saw through him, but it was cool. And then there's pretty much the eldest out of all of the 6. Well, not really, but in terms, you got the Vulture. And Adrian Toomes has always been cool to me. Don't disrespect the guy of his age, he's still a heck of a fighter. And of course there's Sandman, who's pretty much gave Spidey a hell of a run all the time. Spidey would have to trick him into fighting, defeating him, by putting him in cement or using a fire hydrant, things like that. And then you have Spidey's deadliest enemy, one of Spidey's deadliest enemies, Kraven the Hunter. Kravenoff, the Hunter, and he's pretty much on par with Spidey physically, where he can go with Spidey physically, even buried the guy, for God's sakes. He's back now. Him and his whole family are after Spidey to kill him. So the Sinister Six has always been deadly to Spidey. You got six of Spidey's most recognizable villains and his rogues, and it's like putting 6 of Batman's rogues together to go combine their forces to fight Batman. And even though Peter has defeated them, it's been tough, but it was always like a battle for them. And they're going to be back in the Amazing Spider-Man, but a new new lineup. But pretty much a few of them that you see here are back in the lineup. But the Sinister Six has always been cool. But in terms of the battle, guys, I don't know. I can't really. I can see these guys going at it. Doc would probably try to use his head and defeat pretty much all of them. You know, it'd be cool to see how a lot of them do. Each team member does against, if they're paired up against each other, how they would do. Let's say we put Tugmug against Kraven, or Sandman against Chilla, or Mysterio against Allure, or people like that. You know, it'd be kind of cool. But I would say that the fight would go to the one whose team is more cohesive. That's how I say it. The team that won't argue amongst each other as much. The team that is gonna just say, you know what, let's do this. Let's get it over with. Let's defeat our enemies. This obstacle in our way. You know, that's how I feel it is. But you guys tell me who you think would win this fight. The Lunatacs or the Sinister Six? And once again, guys, you give Lady G all the credit. And other than that, guys, it's Mount Vernon Kid. And you see those words. Take care.